Today we have a lot to get into, including sales numbers for the Nintendo Switch 2. Late last night, Nintendo actually announced just how many units of this console have been sold, and it is a record breaker. This is the most units sold for any console in such a short time frame, so we're going to be talking about and breaking down the sales success of the Switch 2. We also have a rating for Splatoon Raiders in Europe. It's already rated over there, which is leading some to believe that the game might actually be closer than expected, given that short teaser yesterday morning. We have patch notes for Splatoon 3 version 10.0, including what that Switch 2 patch is actually going to do when you play the game on Switch 2. The Metroid Prime retrospective book was delayed to a very specific time frame in October, which I think if we're trying to predict when Prime 4 will come out, certainly raises some eyebrows. And then finally, we need to talk a little bit more about Call of Duty on Switch 2, as Activision has replied to IGN when asked about what they're doing with it. When is Call of Duty coming to the platform? We have a new comment from them that we're going to get into. Of course, if you are new here and you enjoy Nintendo Switch 2 topics and discussion, I would appreciate you liking the video and subscribing. Let's get into it. Alrighty folks, welcome back to the channel. My name is Talks Games. I hope your morning is going well, or really your afternoon, a little bit of a later upload today. But first things first, we need to talk about the breaking news last night regarding the Switch 2's sales success, and that came straight from Nintendo of America. They put out a little press release saying hashtag Nintendo Switch 2 has sold over 3.5 million units worldwide in its first 4 days, becoming the fastest selling Nintendo hardware ever globally. Now, Nintendo's not gonna, put PlayStation or Xbox on blast. However, this actually is the fastest selling console ever between any console manufacturer. Now, honestly, to me, this number isn't really that surprising. If you've been following the channel for, the past year or so, we've been talking about how this launch was going to be absolutely massive the entire time because of how much Nintendo was stockpiling Switch 2 stock starting back, I want to say in like September of last year. So they've really been stockpiling this thing and getting it ready for June 5th and making sure there's a plentiful supply ready, which usually isn't the case. Usually you have to try pretty hard to get a console. It seems like this thing is pretty readily available, not for a lack of demand, just Nintendo actually met it for once. There's no artificial scarcity here. They actually stocked enough of the console for those that want to buy it on day one to actually go to a store and buy. You might have some trouble finding it, but I've still seen people saying like, hey, right now you can go to Best Buy and grab one, right? I think even today they did another launch of stock on Best Buy's website. So shout out to Nintendo. I mean, they actually stocked a console appropriately, which really can't be said about most console launches. Usually they sell out on day one and then you can't get them for a month or two at least. And that applies to the Switch 1 as well. But because they had so many Switch 2s available, they were able to reach this insane sales milestone. So just a few fun facts about this milestone from Nintendo, reading from Pierre485_ love this account on Twitter whenever Nintendo has their financial meetings and we get all the numbers breakdowns from them. Definitely recommend following Pierre. They say Nintendo Switch 2 sold over 3.5 million units worldwide in 4 days, fastest selling Nintendo hardware, fastest selling hardware, outsold Switch's first month, which was 2.74 million units shipped in 4 days. So let's be clear here. I've already seen some people getting confused. Usually when a company is talking about how many copies of a game have sold or how many Switches have sold or PlayStations have sold, they're actually talking about how many have shipped to retailers. Nintendo, in this tweet here, is specifically referring to how many consoles have actually sold, meaning a transaction has happened and somebody bought the Switch 2, not shipped to retailers. Usually, that's what we're talking about when we talk about numbers for this stuff, but in this case, it's actually units sold, 3.5 million sold, whereas the Switch, in its first month, only shipped 2.74 million units in March of 2017. So that is a massive increase over the Switch. Now, the Switch did sell most of its stock that month. In fact, probably all of it, because it was hard to get for a while. Had they had more Switches available, would it have been closer to that 3.5 million? Maybe. Certainly maybe. But the fact that the Switch 2 sold more in 4 days than the Switch 1 managed to ship in its first month is really impressive, and certainly the biggest console launch of all time. So we also had a couple of posts from Daniel Ahmad over on Twitter as well here. He said this makes it not just the best-selling Nintendo console in the first 4 days, but the fastest-selling video game home console of all time. And this is the stuff I really like, the actual comparisons to other console launches, because up to now, I'm pretty sure PS5 is like one of the biggest, if not the biggest console launches, at least in America. But I think worldwide PS5 was number one until now. So he said, for reference, it took the PS4 2 weeks to sell 2.1 million units and 6 weeks to sell 4.2 million units. And then this one's crazy. It took the PS5 7 weeks to sell through 4.4 million units, which is nuts because, I mean, you can argue certainly that the PS5 would have sold more more if it wasn't for the chip shortages, if it wasn't for COVID and everything. But either way, it's still just a really impressive milestone for Nintendo to hit that in just 4 days, when the PS5, once again, was like one of the biggest console launches ever. I mean, yeah, if the PS4 sold 4.2 in 6 weeks and the PS5 sold 4.4 million units in 7 weeks, they were about on par there. So Nintendo has taken the crown in terms of biggest console launch of all time. Some additional context from Daniel here. He says PS5 was supply constrained at launch, plus it launched on November 12th in select markets with a full global launch 1 week later. That is true, so that certainly would impact that number a little bit, as well as Switch 2 is not supply constrained, had a single global day launch, and increased production to ensure it met day one demand, which, yes, a lot of other consoles probably could have done this if the supply was there, but the fact of the matter is, no company has ever stocked a console this much on day one. So yeah, huge sales success on Switch 2 for Nintendo. For me, the bigger question is, what do the holiday sales look like? And then especially when you get into like year 2, year 3, what does a Switch Lite do? What does a new Animal Crossing do to the sales of this console? I'm already seeing people say that this is going to sell more than the Switch because of this. I think that's very short-sighted. We will have to see what the long-term legs are on this console. Nintendo has so many more day one level fans now, people that are willing to buy the console as soon as it releases. But how is a $450 console going to sell in year 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 even, And that'll certainly come down to what the software looks like, if there is a price cut, or more importantly, a Switch Lite or a Switch 2 OLED, Switch 2 Pro, that kind of thing. Can the Switch 2 outsell the Switch 1? Maybe. I mean, I think it's way too early to say based on this. Even though this is a bigger launch than Switch 1, it is too early to say, oh yes, this is going to outsell the Switch 1. But I think we can certainly all look at this and say, yeah, it's going to outsell the Wii U. Nintendo Everything posted a random stat. Nintendo Switch 2 has reached 26% of Wii U's lifetime sales in 4 days. So we'll be keeping track of this, see how long it takes the Switch 2 to outsell the Wii U. We will probably reach that number, I guess, by the end of the year, right? Maybe around December in that time frame. If they can keep the supply there and make sure this thing is stocked throughout the holiday season, then yeah, you're probably looking at the Switch 2 outselling Wii U by Christmas. I would say maybe early 2026, but yeah, it's gonna outsell the Wii U pretty quickly, which is we're never having a flop like this again. And I just have to say, as someone who does YouTube like this, and I'm seeing a lot of different comments regarding Nintendo. I see the more hardcore Nintendo fanboy side of things. I see the Nintendo hater side of things. I got so many comments on my videos back in April when this console had its direct and they revealed the price and release date and the launch lineup and all that, saying it was going to be a Wii U level failure. Yeah, no, obviously that was never going to happen. Honestly, I think looking at the Switch 2 launch, it might have had like the smoothest launch of any console. There isn't really any major complaints with the console itself. People really like the hardware. Mario Kart World is a smash hit. People love Mario Kart World. There was ample supply, so there was no insane scalping stories or, people being trampled to get one at their local retailers. This is one of the smoothest launches I've ever seen for a console, in terms of it being relatively easy to get, and in terms of the people buying it being happy. From what I've seen, people that buy a Switch 2, generally speaking, have been very, very happy with the console so far. Where normally I feel like with the console launch, you always hear these like insane stories out of launch saying, oh, Nintendo sent me a dead units, or PlayStation sent me a dead PS5, that kind of thing. In this case, I guess there's some battery issues, perhaps. The battery's very short. But other than that, though, I feel like it's been a pretty painless launch for this console, outside of the game key card controversy and the $80 price tag on Mario Kart controversy. But clearly those things don't actually matter to people that buy video games and buy consoles. It's a vocal minority trying to stir up drama on the internet because, well, we have the proof in the pudding. People don't really care. Or at the very least, it's not enough of an issue for them to not buy the Switch 2 and to not buy the games on it, right? Okay, next up, let's talk about Splatoon Raiders and how it looks like this game might actually be ready for this year. We might be getting this new weird Splatoon spinoff that was announced yesterday morning a little bit sooner than some were expecting. Even in my reaction video yesterday, I'm through the roof excited for this game, but it was such a weird short teaser that didn't really tell us what the game is, with no time frame at all attached to it. I immediately was like, oh, this is like a 2026 thing, maybe summer 2026 at the earliest. However, having slept on it now, having spent all day yesterday thinking about this game and theorizing why they announced it the way that they did, And now knowing this, I actually think there is a good chance that Splatoon Raiders is a game that's coming out in 2025, one of the holiday games for the Nintendo Switch 2. It's funny, 2 weeks ago I made a video trying to predict what other games would slot in to the calendar this year, and in that video, I'll put it up right here, I had this image, and these were all the games I was predicting, and I put a Splatoon 4 as a November game. Now, this isn't quite Splatoon 4, however, if we do get a new Splatoon game this year, I think that counts, especially since it looks like it is being developed by the main team over at EPD5, but it looks like it might actually be coming out sooner, and the main reason for that is over on the Nintendo UK YouTube account, if you watch the trailer on there, it actually has a PEGI rating. Now, what's notable here is, usually if a game has not been rated yet for release in Europe and in the UK and all that, it will say provisional. So if you look at the Dragon Drive trailer here, it says provisional rating for that game, meaning it wasn't rated at the time of that trailer releasing. Whereas here with Splatoon Raiders, it has a final rating for release in Europe and in the UK. So ratings don't always mean, okay, this game is imminent. However, it is a very good indicator that it's not too far off at the very least. So I personally think we're going to be seeing more of this game at a Nintendo Direct in the very near future. I think that might be the topic of tomorrow's video. I think they teased it in this way because, well, it was the 10th anniversary of the reveal of Splatoon yesterday. Actually, it was to the day 10 years ago they announced Splatoon on Wii U. And I think they wanted to announce that Splatoon 3 update and also kind of tease this. And then now, when we get to the June Direct, July Direct, whenever it ends up happening, they can say, hey, tune into a 40-minute Nintendo Direct featuring new information on Prime 4, Pokemon Legends EA if they want to go that route, as well as a deep dive on the new Splatoon Raiders title. And I think that's why they teased it the way they did. So we will see. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Do you think this is further off than 2025? Do you think it's going to be an early 2026, mid 2026, late 2026 game? I just think if they were announcing this for a 2026 release, they would have just said 2026 on it, you know? Like, why not go ahead and set that expectation? Why leave us hanging if it's not coming out this year? So we will see, but I'm optimistic, and I can't wait to see more of this game. I think this might be a hot take. Knowing nothing about this game other than that it's a Splatoon spinoff, this might be my most anticipated game of the year next to, like, Pokemon. Like, I think this is above DK Bonanza for me, just because I love Splatoon so much, and seeing that trailer yesterday, seeing the new update for Splatoon 3 on Switch 2, like, it really got me in that Splatoon mode, because I haven't really played it much since Splatoon 3 came out in 2022. So if this really is a 2025 game, I mean, that is a banger addition to the Switch 2's 2025 lineup. We did also have patch notes come out for Splatoon 3 version 10.0. Now, this update will be going live, I think at 6 p.m. Pacific time tonight, so just a few hours from when I'm posting this video. I'm definitely going to hop on and check it out, see how it runs on Switch 2, but we did get patch notes for both the Switch 2 patch and what that exactly is going to do for the version of the game on there, as well as what content and fixes are being added to the Switch 1 version. So first things first, we have the Switch 2 editions. They made it so that the screen displays in more detail, so higher resolution. They also improve the frame rate. I love how they word it here, made on-screen movement smoother. They improve the frame rates in Splatsville, Inkopolis, Square, and the Grand Festival ground. So the game already runs at 60. I'm pretty sure, like, while you're playing it in multiplayer battles and single player. This is just for the hub, which sometimes would chug a little bit. And Salmon Run, they improved the frame rate for the Salmonids, so like the animations won't seem as choppy when there's a bunch of Salmonids on screen during a Salmon Run. They smooth the animations for certain characters, such as Jellyfish. Those also would certainly drop in frame rate sometimes if they're a little bit at a distance, that kind of thing. So that'll be improved on Switch 2. Changed the animation that displays in the bottom right of the screen when switching scenes. Increased the resolution of images stored in the Nintendo Switch 2 album when screens are captured using photo mode or the capture button on the controller. So that's the Switch 2 patch for this game. However, there is also just a new content update for this as well. So they've said, made it so certain elements outside of the stage and unrelated to battle do not display when battling in Splatoon's Tower Control, Rainmaker, Clam Blitz. This changes to reduce differences in game operation speed as much as possible when compared to Switch 2. In Recon mode, all elements will display as they have up to this point. All other changes below apply to Switch 2 and Switch 1. So we have a new stage, Urchin Underpass. My goat from the original Splatoon game is back. Very excited to play that tonight. They also added 30 new weapons as part of the Splatlands collection, Barazushi and Embers. So you can take a look here at all of the new weapons and kits here. I haven't played Splatoon 3 in so long, so I can't pretend to be that excited about new weapons when I haven't even played with all of the weapons that they added post-launch to begin with. However, I know Splatoon fans are very happy that we are finally getting some new content in this game because it's been a while, so we have quite a few new weapon kits for you to grind and unlock. Very exciting stuff. And then we also have some buffs and nerfs to specific weapon kits here. You can kind of read through these. I'll have it linked down below if you want to see the exact details on everything. But yeah, very cool stuff. Added a series weapon feature to Anarchy Battle for rank S or higher. Just a lot of little things. And then, of course, they increased the maximum value for weapon freshness to 10 star. So they increased that a little bit. They added new badges players can acquire based on the number of weapons with freshness 4-star or higher. Made it so other players that a player has battled with in Anarchy and Splatfest Battle will not display in users you have played with. That's a good feature, I guess. And then, yeah, just a ton of other balance fixes and bugs fixes. This is a huge update for Splatoon 3, and I'm really excited to hop into it tonight. They even fixed some stuff in side order as well. So, yeah, Splatoon's back, baby. It feels like it's been a while since it was really in my mind as like, okay, I want to play Splatoon. Really a couple years at this point. But now, with Splatoon Raiders, with this version 10.0 patch, adding Switch 2 functionality, making it run a little bit better, I cannot wait to hop into this tonight. Very exciting stuff. Okay, I wanted to highlight this because I don't really know what to make of it. It probably doesn't mean anything. However, I saw some people talking about it, thought I would chime in as well. So Piggyback had announced a Metroid Prime retrospective book that was supposed to release in July. That has been delayed to October. Now, it probably doesn't mean anything. It probably is just like okay, well, the book isn't ready. We need to delay it due to manufacturing or whatever. However, there is that Nintendo conspiracy theory part of me that's like, are they delaying it to line it up more with the release of Metroid Prime 4 Beyond? Now, at this point, I think we all agree Prime 4 has to release in either September, October, or November in that time frame. I mean, there's really not that many months left in the year that they could slot it into, but did they delay it to October to line it up more with the release of the game? I don't know. I'm hoping we get a release date for this game very soon, even if there is no Nintendo Direct, which we're going to talk about soon in another video. We need a release date. Like, drop it in Nintendo Today, drop it on Twitter. I don't really care. Just give me a release date, a concrete time we can play this dang Metroid Prime game. If Splatoon Raiders is this year, could Splatoon Raiders be a September game? Right? Splatoon 3 was September, and then maybe Metroid Prime 4 is an October game. That could work. And that would line it up more with this this new retrospective art book that's coming out. I don't know. I just wanted to toss it in here. If you pre-ordered this, just know your order has been delayed. Maybe they're lining it up more on Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, but maybe it doesn't mean anything. I don't know. I just want a release date for the game at this point, man. And then the final thing I wanted to touch on in today's video, something I've been following very closely as someone who does care about third-party supports on the Switch 2, shifting away from all of our first-party topics today so far. Activision actually replied to IGN when asked for comments about Call of Duty on Nintendo, and they had this to say. In a statement released to IGN, Activision said it and Nintendo were still working on bringing Call of Duty to Switch. Quotes, "We're committed to getting the franchise on Switch. Both teams are working on it. We'll share details when ready." So, not the greatest comment in the world, not the most enlightening thing. However, it is nice to just see, like, okay, they're still working on it. It's still coming. It is funny they said Switch. Surely they meant Switch 2, unless they do some sort of cloud version on Switch 1 and then a native version on Switch 2. Perhaps that could happen, because as you all know, Nintendo and Activision and Microsoft signed a 10-year agreement here to bring Call of Duty to Nintendo platforms on the same day as Xbox with full feature and content parity. So the games are coming. It's just a matter of when. I still think there's a chance that Black Ops 7, this year's game, will come to Switch 2, and they're just saving that announcement for a separate time. We still haven't really seen the full reveal for Black Ops 7. The platforms were confirmed in the reveal trailer. It is coming to PS4 and Xbox One, you know, those 12-year-old consoles. If they can get it running on PS4 still, there should be no issue getting it on Switch 2. They really shouldn't. So we will see. Will Call of Duty come this year, or will it not start until next year or even later? I just think now's the time to do it while it's still on PS4. I mean, maybe they'll still be on PS4 next year as well. I mean, if they have to get it on Switch 2 anyway, why not release it there? I don't know what the player base looks like on PS4 and Xbox One at this point. But if they're going to spec the game for lower end PCs and stuff to begin with, you might as well put it on Switch 2 as well as those, what would that be, 8th gen consoles as well. We will see. I'm optimistic that Black Ops 7 will come to Switch 2 later this year, and we're just saving that announcement for a Nintendo Direct or some sort of separate Call of Duty events. But let me know what you think in the comments down below. Do you think Call of Duty is going to come to Switch 2 this year, next year? Never. Maybe they'll never be able to get a port running. Let me know what you think down below. But that is going to do it for today's video. Wanted to hop on here and discuss those insane Switch 2 sales numbers, talk about Splatoon Raiders some more, when it's going to release, the Splatoon 3 patch notes, the Metroid Prime 4 art book, as well as Call of Duty on Switch 2. Let me know your thoughts on all of those stories in the comments down below. I'm going to have a video tomorrow going over Splatoon Raiders a little bit more in depth and what that announcement means for the lineup for the rest of the year, but also a potential Nintendo Direct, so definitely stay tuned for that. Of course, subscribe here for more Nintendo Switch 2 content, coverage, news, discussion, all that fun stuff. Follow me on Twitter at BoTalksGames. Check out my Nintendo collecting channel at It's Amiibo, and click on one of the 2 videos on screen to listen to me ramble about even more Nintendo stuff. Until next time, folks. Peace!